Trust a proven performer. Newstalk ZB.
Welcome back to Waikato's All Sports Breakfast, brought to you by Peter Kelly from Bailey's Real Estate. Bit of a hiccup with the start there. The old bloke on this side of the panel pushed the wrong button. Well, that's not unusual that I've pushed the wrong button and a whole lot of things going through the world. Thanks to Chris for coming in and spending an hour with us from Matamata Sports World, with the great fishing show we have done as well. A lot on this weekend too, up at Napa, Meremere Dragway. It is the final round of the New Zealand Drag Racing Champs. So we're going to talk to Alan Thorison about that later on in the show. McDonald's Kiki Speedway tonight, the King Country Stock Car Champs and the Brycetown Memorial Midget Series. Long time since we've had a field of midgets down there that are this good. Down in Taupo this weekend, the New Zealand Superbike Champs today and tomorrow down at Bruce McLaren Park down in Taupo. Tomorrow, Frankton Thunder, and this is just the coolest thing ever. It's got everything. It's got steampunk, it's got army, it's got hot rods, it's got drag bikes, it's got classic cars, it's got craft stalls and music. That's going all day tomorrow down in Frankton from 9 a.m. And next Sunday, the 21st, out at Matamata, the Matamata Kara Orama is on. So there's lots of things going on, and they're just the ones I know about that I get told about. But this bloke knows everything that's going on in the world because he is just the key to sport in the Waikato. His name is Matthew Cooper, and he's going to talk a bit about Chiefs and a bit about the world. Good morning, Matthew.
Yes, good morning, Mintie. And just to add to that, if you enjoy your volleyball Waikato have the finals for secondary schools down at the Peak late this afternoon. So that's the men's and girls. Boys and girls volleyball, and that is a great sport as well. So you'll see some pretty cool and schools that are they've always been proficient. The likes of Matamata College, very good at volleyball. Hillcrest High School, alongside your Hamilton Boys High and Fraser High as well. So it's a good sport to go and watch. So if you're over that way, the Rototuna way, and you want to watch some classy volleyball, pop down to the Peak.
Well, I believe one of your family is very good at volleyball, aren't they? One of your daughters. Your daughter's very good.
Yeah, Grace enjoys that game, and it's a really neat game. It's a good hand-eye skill game, and you'll find that they lend into the basketball as well. Those sort of people, and it's good sport. Got a lot of growth as well, and a lot of growth with young females as well playing volleyball, which is fantastic.
Bit of that, indeed, and indeed it is. Now, Matthew, let's start off by having a bit of a talk about the Chiefs. Last week, the first 30 minutes I thought was outstanding. Ball in hand, supporting play, running off shoulders, doing everything right, and then it just sort of putted out. And Roger Randall said that it just putted out.
Yeah, they got challenged, I think, in terms of a bit of brilliance from Mariki, and the option was right from Bryn. But probably in hindsight, it might have been better to put a grubber through rather than the chip. That was a brilliant intercept try, and the speed of Mariki, and he's one of those special players that came back and bit us a little bit in the second half. And you're right, it was a really good performance. Let's just remember it's Clayton McMillan's first time in charge of the Chiefs, and I know that we have a stat, and that's all they are. I'm famous for a stat in an All Black side at Eden Park in '94. We have a stat, Mintie, and at the moment around our losing, but that's all that is. I mean, it's one game away from a good performance. I want to see a good performance against a very, very good side in Christchurch, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard for the Chiefs to win tonight. But all I want to see is a team playing with a lot of pride, a team that's doing the basics really well, and worried about their own game when Crusaders have the ball to knock them over and try and win the ball. That's all I want to see, regardless of the result tonight, and regardless of. At the end of the day, we can't focus too much around the losing stretch that we've got, which is that's a stat. To me, I'm more worried about this game and next week's game at home against the Hurricanes.
Yeah, well, and to be honest, let's have a squiz at it, and you want to run down that track from there.
Yeah.
You look at tonight, they put Josh Lord in. That's just tall timber to try and combat the line out from there. But I thought Samapeni Finau last night at number 6 last week had a great game. He's not even in the squad this week. Mitchell Brown starting and Anton Leonard-Brown on the reserve. So lots of changes going on with Quinn Tupaia coming back in at second 5.
Yeah, that will be. Yeah, you're right, and you certainly the evolution of Tupou Vai has been fantastic, hasn't he, since he's got that All Black start last year. Mitchell Brown, you're not going to lose anything from Mitchell Brown. I mean, I thought he was just outstanding for us last year. They're keeping control of the Weber Gatlin combination, and I understand that. I think you've got to give Bryn a go at 10, so he has that opportunity to take charge. One thing I like, he's a very heady player. He knows where under pressure where to put the ball. And he can control. I think the challenge for someone like Bryn Gatlin, who's young and who's come into the Chiefs setup, is that you've got a player like McKenzie at the back around him, and Anton Leonard-Brown when he comes on, Brad Weber on the inside. They're confident, well-established All Blacks. The key for Bryn Gatlin is the Chiefs have got to give him they've got to give him the keys to say, you're in charge. You're in charge of this team, and he has to demand what he wants because he's a very good footballer. But I suppose the challenge when you're new and you're young is, and particularly in a position like first five, is when how much authority do you take charge? When do you take charge of the team? Well, he has to take charge straight away. Luke Jacobson was good to see where he's coming from. That loose forward trio looks pretty good to me.
Yep.
To Pye, they've got Stevenson on the right side on the right wing as well. So and a good bench. But I had a look at the other side too. They're not bad, Mintie.
Yeah, they're pretty tidy. And look, to be honest, Stevenson is a player with all the skills, all the promise. But Michael Pullman and I were talking during the week and sort of said he's a bit like a tap. He's hot, warm, and cold.
Yeah, that'd be right. I mean, he's when he's good, he's very, very good. And sometimes the mistakes that Sean makes, they can be, they can also come back and bite you as well. But he's sort of like that very special. As long as he can just control and do those little things where he tests us a little bit, test the blood pressure a little bit, I suppose. As long as he just tries to limit those, because his good is very good.
Yeah, he is indeed. And look, but you can't take it away from the Crusaders, Matthew. They're outstanding.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they just rumbled up last week, didn't they, against the Hurricanes at home? And I see now they've a couple of changes there. They've got Will Jordan coming back into fullback. Well, we know how good Will Jordan is now. I mean, he's announced himself on the international stage. David Harville slips into second five alongside Goodhue, Whaianuku and Sevu Reece. It's just a solid side right across the ball. You've got Harvili coming in at 6 to replace Blackadder. Then you've got Grace and Christie. Just a very solid side.
Indeed it is, and I'm impressed with Sevu Reece. He's going looking for work. He's busy. His hands have got very, very good. Like, he doesn't make many mistakes, Matthew.
Yeah, I like that too, because he is a very good player who announced himself on the international stage about a couple of years ago, and he's been under a bit of pressure at that international level now, and only because of the depth of New Zealand rugby. But what I like about a player like Sevu, who's such a good man, and he's fighting now. He's trying to show the All Black coach that. Don't forget me, and not forgetting me is sometimes when it doesn't go your way and you're not scoring tries. You've got to make yourself look good. You've got to make yourself busy, and you've got to do those little things really well. And that's one thing that you'll notice with good players when they're having a little bit of a lean trot from probably getting across the try line, is that they start looking for work. And that's the best thing about Sevu Reece, is he's a really good winger that looks for work all the time. And
that running down for that last week, man, he made some wheels to catch up to make that tackle. He just burned it all the way for 90 metres.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, really, really good. It'll be a good game, because we know that our Chiefs are a team that plays with. They'll be hurting, and they'll play with. They won't go away for 80 minutes. We know that from the Chiefs. All they've got to think about is playing good, smart rugby and limit mistakes. A lot of the second half last week, it was their own errors, Mintie. They started to make silly mistakes. They started to drop the ball. Rugby's not a scientific game.
No, it's not indeed. And Matthew, on the home front, talking about some wonderful passing, some wonderful cyclists.
Yeah, I do. I want to make a special mention to Julie Stevenson. Julie worked for me at Smith Waikato for a long time. A wonderful legacy out at Hauraki District, and unfortunately last week on the tour of Aotearoa, her husband Tex passed away. on the tour. Tex is an absolute legend in Hauraki. He got me across K1 in Coromandel, and he never left my side, which being a very average cyclist, he got me across a couple of big hills in Coromandel a couple of years ago. Really special man, and a man that was not only family, a man that was all community, and a man that he cared. He always helped your mate, and it's very sad. It was a wonderful farewell in Ngatea yesterday for Tex. But he said he's going to be a champion that will never be forgotten. And the Hauraki Handlebar Club, that's the cycling club out of Ngatea. On their shirts, they've got a neat logo called Guru, and Guru is everything about Tex Stevenson. So, our thoughts, as always, with the Stevenson family. Son Lloyd played for hockey for New Zealand. Wonderful family and a wonderful community up in Ngatea.
It's a tough part of as we get older, and a lot of the people that we think we used to be 20 with, we're now 60 with, and it's a real changing facet of life, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and if there's one hope, he was doing what he loved doing, but certainly gone too soon. And yes, as I said before, Mintie, it was a fantastic farewell for a champion bloke.
All right, Matthew, look, thanks for your time this morning. We'll keep in contact as we float through the season. Go the Mighty Chiefs tonight. Let's hope it all clicks together, because we are a bogey side of those Crusaders. We don't mind beating them, and they, if anything, we might have a bit of mental wood on them. And of course, Clayton, Roger, and the Hilly, and they're a good coaching crew, and I think that we're going to have it click. And when it does, it's going to be pretty spectacular.
Well, that's the same, and there's one of these days where I'd be a little bit be nervous if I'm a Crusader, because you don't play the Chiefs when they're a little bit hurting, a little bit wounded, but they have absolutely firepower in their side.
Indeed we do. Thanks for your time, Matthew. And like I said, we'll look forward to catching up this morning as we go through with Glenn Ross from Hamilton Boys High Rowing, and then Ross Filippo, the new coach of the mighty Red, Yellow and Blacks. Wow, that's a good appointment this week too.
Yeah, fantastic. Nice to hear that. Mardi Cup not far away, the biggest tournament, one of the biggest tournaments, if not the biggest in New Zealand. And great news for Ross to be at the helm of the mighty Mooloos.
All right, mate, you take care, have a safe weekend, and make sure you keep looking after that wonderful soap company of your wife's.
Okay, thanks, Mintie.
Matt Cooper, CEO of Sport Waikato, and lots of things going on. The time's 8:19. When we come back, I've got to also say, Winger. Winger Motors or Winger Subaru, Winger, whatever you like to call them, but Paul Burbra, the Barge, he is out there. It's part of the Winger Group. 25 years he's been at the helm out there, so congratulations, Barge. Well done on sticking it out there. Nice to have you along, and of course he's involved in sport all over the place, sponsoring and helping and chasing, but congratulations, Barge. 25 years of running that wonderful motor company out there in Te Rapa. It's 8:19. When we come back, we're going to talk to Glenn Ross, Director of Coaching at Hamilton Boys High School. Well, welcome back to Waikato's All Sports Breakfast, brought to you by Peter Kelly from Bailey's Real Estate. The Aon Māori Cup is at Lake Karapiro this year from the 22nd to the 27th of March. And Hamilton Boys High School have an absolute proud history in the Māori Cup, the Springbok Shield, the under-15s. And again, with no Māori Cup last year because of COVID, let's find out what's happening in a few weeks. Joining me now is the Director of Coaching from Hamilton Boys High School, Glenn Ross. Glenn, how's the Boys High crews looking this year as we get stuck into another good season?
Well, it's a bit hard to say. It's I guess when we began the season, we were probably not sure as to what we would cough up at the top end of our program. The sport of rowing is pretty cyclical, and depends on what you have got coming through, obviously, who can stick at it and who stays with it, and what you've got in the age groups coming through. And we were we thought that maybe that our senior group might be a little bit under strength this year, but they've proved us wrong in that regard, because they're very competitive. At the beginning of the season, they were quite some distance behind Auckland Grammar, who have got a very good crew, and they were the top under 17 group last year. We were some 20 seconds behind them at the Christmas regatta.
Wow.
But at the North Island Club Champs, we were only a second and a half behind them. So we've made a lot of progress. Bruce is pretty pleased with the fact that they have progressed to where they are at. Now, we're not suggesting that we're going to be quick enough to be able to, or big enough or strong enough to be able to beat the very best crews, but I think we'll be competitive.
Glenn, this crew you've got floating around then for the Māori Cup, are they all 7th form, year 13, or leaving school, or have you got some younger ones there that you can say this is our base for next year?
Well, the latter. We've got 5 under-17s in this group.
Wow.
And there's 3 under-18s and 5 under-17s. And, so it's looking good for next year, but this season they're there to give it a go now. And, we're down at Mangakino this weekend and just finishing off everything. The water's absolutely perfect at the moment. In 10 days' time, we'll start to really feel our way into this, and we'll start to work out whether we are going to be a serious competitor or not.
How's the other age groups looking? Because Māori Cup's not just about the Premier 8s. You've got the Springbok Shield, you've got a lot of the girls' schools and the combined schools, but also the under-15s and the youth. How are you looking in those age groups?
Yeah, we've always been really strong in our junior grades. In rowing, there's under-15s, 16s, under-17s and under-18s, the 4 age group categories. And we've won the under-15 8 for the last basically 20 years, all bar 1 year when they got second. But so we've always had a strong junior program, and this year's no exception. Our under-15s, we've got 3 under-15 8s. One of them we used to row in the novice 8s. They've been winning the novice 8 this year, and that's under-18 novices, first-year rowers. And our number 1 combination has been doing what we do with the under-15 8 and octuple. So we've got a good, we've got a good strong under-15 group, and we've got a good strong under-16 group. And of course, there are 5 of the under-17s in the under-18 group. So obviously, the under-17s are fairly strong. So through the grades, we're pretty happy with where we will be competitively.
Now, Glenn, tell me what's a week in a training schedule for a rower? Because these kids are at school, and I remember when I was at school, 13, 14, 15, I was playing sport, I was getting home, I was doing homework and all sorts of stuff. What's a normal week look like for these youngsters as they train so hard to get to national level?
Well, it varies from school to school. Our program is fairly kind on our junior boys. Our junior boys train 4 times a week, and then they have a gym session once a week. They don't train in the weekends if we haven't got a regatta, unless we are, peaking for the championship event at the end of the year. So they have a fairly light program. Their training sessions incorporate just an hour on the water each day. They don't have exceptionally long time on the water. I like to get them, they go after school 3 times a week and before school once a week. And I like to get them away from the club by 5:15 at the latest. They've got a life to live. They've got homework to do. They've got tea to eat, and they've got a family to enjoy. So that if we get that part of it right, then most of the kids are fairly infected by the time they finish. And if they've had some success, getting them back at under 16 and under 17 generally isn't that much of a problem. But it is hard because there are lots of other things going on in the world, and lots of options for young people, as we hear so much, and those who do stick at it end up with the rewards. As they get into the older age groups, they start to do a bit more. That 4 times a week becomes 5, 6 times a week, and in their last year, they're 7 or 8 times a week. So it's a pretty big load.
Glenn, are they training where, out at Karapiro?
No, we do all our training on the river. And we use, and Mangakino, Lake Maraetai is our training base, where we house we've got a shed down here where we keep our championship boats, and we can come down when the weekends work. We'll come down on a Friday after school with a group of boys, usually the 16s, 17s and 18s. They'll bust down after school on a Friday. They'll have a good row Friday night. They'll have tea here. They'll get up early and have a good row Saturday morning, come in and have some breakfast, go out and have another row, and they'll be back in Hamilton by lunchtime. So when we do that, they still have a weekend. They still have part of a weekend, should I say. they have their Saturday afternoon and their Saturday evening and their Sunday free. So they still have a life, we think.
Sounds good to me. Hey, Glenn, look, good luck for the Aon Māori Cup this year. We'll keep in contact with the rowing as we go through and make sure we get some good coverage going on for all the schools. But again, Hamilton Boys High doing the things very proudly in rowing in New Zealand, and let's hope it cracks together for you this year.
Thanks very much.
Well, welcome back to Waikato's All Sports Breakfast, brought to you by Peter Kelly from Bailey's Real Estate. And it's been announced this week that the famous Red, Yellow and Black Rugby Union of Waikato has a new coach. And his name, he's been around for a while, his name is Ross Filippo. Good morning, Ross, and congratulations on the appointment.
Good morning, Mintie. Yeah, thank you, mate. I appreciate that.
Mate, it's cool. You've been around the traps, you've been floating around with straws and a few of those for a couple of years. How did it come about that you put your hand up? Was it a shoulder tap, or did it go out to the market, or they just say this is the time for you to step in?
I guess I've been working as a game developer or RDO, or it's kind of been a number of different names over the years in the community game. And then Straws invited me in to come and run the line out one year, and then from there it progressed on to being an assistant coach last year. And then Straws had indicated that he wants to step out of the coaching side of things, and asked me if I was wanting to kind of move into the head coach role. So I think it's kind of naturally just kind of organically progressed that way. I kind of feel like I've put in a number of years of groundwork, and I feel like I'm at the stage where I'm ready to step into that space.
Isn't that just the coolest thing? So does that mean you get to pick and put together your team that's going to fit around you with the coaching group, or are you going to bring some of the guys who were part of the group last year through some more?
No, at this stage we're still kind of working through that process. I'd like to keep the group that we worked with last year. We started to get quite a decent amount of cohesion together by the end of the year, and I think we were kind of pushed together quite quickly last year. So I think a good lead into a campaign would serve us really well as a group. It's just a matter of whether that fits with those guys and the union. So it's still a work in progress at the stage.
Ross, the big challenge, I suppose, is keeping that player base that we keep producing here. If you look at most of the NPC teams and many of the Super Rugby sides now, mostly are running halfbacks who come from the Waikato initially. And how tough it is as you, looking at an NPC coach, to keep a lot of these players hanging around here to say, we want you to play in the Red, Yellow and Blacks?
Yeah, I think all Mitre 10 Cup teams find it difficult to retain players. And it's just, I guess it's something that we sit down and since I've started operating in that space, starting to give careful consideration to how our retention and recruitment plan looks going forward. It is tough because a lot of these guys are quite talented, and then super unions, obviously take note of these guys, they pull them in, and then those home unions that are close to those other super bases are fairly quick to try and put something in front of those players if they're off contract. So it's really making sure that for us, our succession planning happens early and quickly, and we're all over that recruitment retention space, and don't really sit on our hands too long.
And that's the big challenge, isn't it? Because the COVID, if nothing else, has stopped a lot of our players hiking off to Europe or to America or Japan, China. So a lot of them are staying home, I suppose, now. And there is a bit of a bigger selection base around. But I think if COVID opens up the borders around the world, we're going to see a lot of players take off again, aren't we?
Yeah, I think there is potential for that. I don't know if that's going to happen this year. I think there's still going to be a few players trying to get home because of the situation overseas in various countries, which, depending on whether they can get a ticket into a isolation facility is available. That's another thing that poses a few issues with guys coming back, and then bringing international players over and in. It still makes it quite clunky because of the timing of the competition. but I think there is going to be a boost of player pool to choose from, and guys will slowly drip feed back into New Zealand throughout the course of the year. And I imagine post Northern Hemisphere seasons finishing, a number of players would have chosen to come back home because of the situation, in the countries that they're currently in. So it's one of those ones. Do you take a gamble and wait and see as to whether players will come back, or do you just get crack on with what you've got going on and show faith in the young guys?
Well, I can tell you,
and your local players.
I can give you a guarantee. The end of June and most of July have MIQ beds available as of today.
Right.
Well, you found I'm trying to get somebody back from overseas, so that's how I know. So there's some beds there. So if any 6'10" locks, I'll probably put the word out, innit?
I caught up with Casey Laulala last night on Zoom, and he said he's been kind of floating around in Dubai for the last eight weeks, waiting for a bed.
Yep, they came up last night. They came up last night and went pretty quick, and some more have popped up tonight because we're trying to get someone home and managed to get a bed last night. So that's pretty cool from there. So Ross, tell me about your plans. When's the season sort of really kick in? Because club rugby's just about ready to crack in, and that means you get exceptionally busy for the next few months, don't it?
Yep, I do. I obviously have to be out and about in and amongst the clubs and making sure that we're keeping tabs on our players that are currently inside the high performance squad. But it also gives me a chance to look at a couple of guys or a number of players that are on the fringe that are of interest to us. So there's definitely going to be a lot of bouncing around the region, which I enjoy anyway. I love that part of my community role. And so making sure that I've made some good connections around the place now, and I feel really Waikato feels like home to me now. Yeah. Because of the amount of time I've spent in the community and the amount of connections I've made. So there's also that. I want to make sure we tend to that side of our relationship, and making sure that the Mulus are present in the Waikato community. And it's a special year for the union as well, being its centenary year. So there's going to be a lot going on leading up to Mitre 10 Cup. Plus, we're going to have to try and get all our plans and structures and systems in place prior to the Super Rugby players returning as well.
Yep.
And just streamline everything and make sure that it's all packaged up nicely so that we can run really efficiently.
And any talk of that stalwart from Raglan last year and the green and blacks out there who's played about 95 games coming back to make that 100 in the centenary year? Have you had a yarn with Liam yet?
Oh yeah, I talk to Liam most days. We're good friends, so we that's another work in progress at the moment. I'd love to. Like most Waikato people, they'd love to see one of their big chiefs get his 100 games.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that if he is in with us, and that's the case going forward, that he's on it the right way.
Yeah.
So this year for us poses a really exciting future ahead, because we could really turn it into a real celebration of Waikato rugby. So there's a lot going on, and but it's a lot of work, and I'm aware of that, and I know I'm only standing at the base of the mountain and just taking my first couple of steps, but I'm pretty keen for the climb.
Hey, look, Ross, congratulations on your appointment. I think it's awesome. I have the utmost respect for you of how I've seen your mannerisms around the Waikato side with Andrew, and over the last few years I've got to observe and see what you do. So congratulations on the appointment. Follow with interest this year, and like I said, once you get to announcing assistants and all those sorts of things, we'd love to have that part of our show as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mintie. I appreciate the time.
You take care, be safe, and have a great Saturday, eh?
The weekend's finally here, and it starts now. It's the All Sport Breakfast with Peter Kelly of Bailey's Real Estate. Trust a proven performer. Newstalk ZB.
Well, welcome back to Waikato's All Sports Breakfast, brought to you by Peter Kelly from Bailey's Real Estate. Well, you know my passion for things with fossil fuels and burning rubber and all those sorts of great things about motorsport. Well, today at Napa Mary Dragway is the finals of the National Drag Racing Championship. So it's big grand finals day, and joining me is a man from Hamilton who has done everything there is to do in drag racing, but on a motorbike. He's been to Bonneville. He's won national titles, and he only lets me say that he's in an age group of Gold Card Plus. But his name is Alan Thorison. Morning, Alan. How are you today?
Yeah, hi, Graham. How's things? All good.
Look, I'm great. You're sitting in your car up at the Dragway, ready to go for the National Grand Final today. Alan, how many years have you been doing this drag racing caper?
Many years. My history goes back to I got into motorbikes originally, circuit racing, back in 72, 73, and I kind of went mad on it then, and I started. I did some drag racing. I got a New Zealand record back in 73. It was my first one at a young age, and then I've always had motorcycles all the way through and loved speed, and then my passion veered into aviation, and it was anything kind of went fast I was keen on. So, and once again, as I said, I've had motorcycles in my life, but I'd spent a lot more time flying than the aviation. But in 2004, 2005, I got back into some of the drag racing, just with street bikes, up Mary, and in 2006, Kawasaki brought out the new ZX14, and I said to my wife, "Look, hey, I'd love one of those." And fortunately, my wife was very supportive and was a petrol head, and we got that, and basically ran it, got 500 k's on, and converted over and put on the drag strip, and then started kind of achieving from there. Got a number one title that when we first ran the ZX14, and 2007, we'd had an aspiration to go to Bonneville for many, many years, and basically my wife being American, we had a couple of contacts over there with family we could stay at, try to cut the costs down. Had an awesome sponsor, Go Logistics, come on board, and he paid for the bike to go over, so he prepped it, and we were supposedly the first New Zealand motorcyclist to go back since Bert Munro, or so they told us anyway. And we ran on the Bonneville Salt Flats at Speed Week in 2007, in our first year. It was one hell of an experience. I was fortunate I got to practice on the Hamilton Airport runway with my aviation experience, and unofficially we'd hit 214 miles an hour.
Wow.
And the record at Bonneville was actually 186 miles an hour. And, you've been Kiwis, so this is going to be a walk in the park. We'll go and do it. But I tell you what, it's a rude awakening when you get over there. Total loss of traction. We were struggling basically to get 180 miles an hour, and the back wheel was spinning, probably well over 200 miles an hour.
Wow.
And anyway, as I said, we developed a great respect for the salt, because in our first year, we unfortunately on the last day, the salt was quite gluggy and cars were spinning out, having some major mishaps. And anyway, they rutted up the salt quite badly, and so for a motorcyclist going along, it was like high-speed motocross. So myself and the other guys just stuck to the right-hand side of the track best we could, and then on my what turned out to be my last run, I was running at close to 180 miles an hour. You're milking the throttle, trying to minimise the loss of traction, just if I can step back a wee bit. One of the things they tell you when you learn to ride at Bonneville is you don't brake, you don't de-accelerate quickly, and you don't sit up quickly, okay? Otherwise you'll crash. Anyway, I was close to 180 miles an hour, thereabouts, and I hit something, and it was, I believe it was somebody's tear-off visor, and it was enough to cause the back of the bike to slide out. And Murphy's Law, there's miles and miles of empty space, but where it directed me was right into a timing tower, which one of the Bonneville timing towers and timing markers. And I actually crashed straight through that, and it took off all the front end of the bike, fairings and that. I was still halfway in control of the bike, saying, I'm not going to crash at Bonneville, I'm not going to crash. And I had my head down, knowing you can't brake, knowing you can't close the throttle quickly. And so I had basically no front end, no fairings and that on the bike, and I was, kind of out of control. And then I thought, thank God I've got under control. I put my head up, and the bike had obviously veered around quite a bit. And I looked up, and I'd actually travelled half a mile, and I went through the next timing mark and took that out as well. So I was very fortunate. I was able to stop. I developed a huge respect for the salt.
And there he is, Alan Thorison. You can talk to him tomorrow down at Frankton Thunder as well, because he'll have his bike down there and, of course, up at Napa Mary Dragway, looking to have another crack at a New Zealand drag weighting title. We'll take a break. When you come back, Butch Castles to operate. This man is on a roll at the moment. He knows his onions when it comes to picking horses. Butch Castles, CEO of Te Rapa Racing Club. He joins us now. Morning, Butch.
Morning, Mintie.
Matey, you're on a roll at the moment. You are doing the exceptional job of making our listeners just a bit healthy.
Yeah, we had a good day, Derby Day, didn't we, on Sunday with Rocket Spade getting the job done over Milford in the Derby and, of course, on Trivier and the like in those support races. So you're only as good as your last performance, and let's hope we can find a winner or two today on Barfoot and Thompson Auckland Cup Day.
Big day in at Auckland Cup. It's one that gets everything fizzing and the world fires up, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, it's just fantastic that Auckland was returned to level 1 yesterday so that they can have a crowd there. Of course, talking to a lot of the participants last Sunday at Ellerslie with no crowd, they thought it was weird having Derby Day like that, but they were also very thankful that they were able to continue and to run those races. So today there'll be a big crowd turn up at Ellerslie. Yes, there'll be lots down at the viaduct and out on the water watching the America's Cup, which is just riveting viewing at the moment, isn't it? But there'll be plenty turn up at Ellerslie to enjoy what is one of the time-honoured races on the New Zealand calendar, the Barfoot and Thompson Auckland Cup.
Yeah, it's a pretty classic sort of race, isn't it? So, Butch, they attract a field that's just bloody good, really, to be honest, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Headed up this year by an Australian in sound. He's come across. He's from the Mike Moroney barn in Melbourne. Of course, they've got a stable at Matamata, and they've sent him across. He ran second in the race last year. He's run in the last couple of Melbourne Cups, so he's the class act of the field and the one they all have to beat, number 2, Sound. I thought the two main dangers, one of them well in the market, which is Platinum Invader, Lee Innes to do the riding for Lisa Ladder. This combination has been successful at Ellerslie in the past, and the best roughie in the race for me was Charles Road from the Derby winning stable of Lance O'Sullivan and Andrew Scott. Look, his last two runs have been okay and better than they look on paper, and he's 35 or 40 to 1, so he can run a cheeky race at a big price, but they will all be flat out beating the Australian visitor, number 2, Sound.
And they'll want to take the money back with them to Australia no matter what it is, won't they?
Oh, for sure. For sure they will. Look, we go across there and we've had some great success. Of course, Probabeel lining up in their $5 million All-Star Mile today for Team Tiakau and the Cambridge Stud ownership team of Brendan and Joe Lindsay. So good luck to them in a $5 million race at Moonee Valley this afternoon. So hopefully if Sound wins the Auckland Cup, they can take home $300,000. And if Probabeel wins the All-Star Mile, we can bring back $3 million. Not a bad trade.
Yeah, I think that's fair and done and dusted. Butch, much else on the front around the local scene at the moment coming up?
Yeah, look, a couple of big other quick ones at Ellerslie today. The Steamer for the 2-year-old should be a match race between the Tiakau runners on the Bubbles and Sword of State, as should the Bone Crusher Stakes, the Group 1 2,000 metre race. Avantage shooting for 5 in a row, and Melody Bell looking to redeem herself after the uncharacteristic failure in the Herbie Dyke Stakes a few weeks ago at Te Rapa. Look, there's big racing coming up. Te Araha, they have their Group 1 Day Breeders' Stakes in a couple of weeks, so plenty over that way. We'll be looking forward to their feature day on the calendar, and we kick off again after track renovations and a bit of a break at Te Rapa. Our first meeting back is Saturday the 17th of April.
Cheers, mate. You have a great Saturday and be safe, and I take it you'll be going up the motorway and enjoying your day up there.
Yeah, I'm going to have a day out at Ellerslie today. Really looking forward to it. It's a great day's racing, and just thankful that we can be a part of it.
Cheers, mate. See you next week. That's Butch Castles from Te Rapa Racing Club. Frankton Thunder tomorrow. See you there, folks. Have a safe weekend. Stay safe on the roads. And we'll see. That was Waikato's All Sports Breakfast, brought to you by Peter Kelly from Baylor's Real Estate. See you later.